Why would a mansion be moved not once, but twice? Hi everyone, Ken here. Today we're uncovering the little-known Gilded Age estate of one of the era's most prominent heiresses. Hit that subscribe button and let's explore this house. Harriet Pullman was born into extraordinary privilege as the daughter of George Pullman, the 19th century industrialist famous for his Pullman Palace sleeping cars and for being one of Chicago's wealthiest men. The Pullmans' fortune, built on luxury railway travel, ensured that money was never an object in Harriet's upbringing. In fact, when Harriet married Frank Carolyn in 1892, her father gifted the bride a diamond tiara and a staggering $400,000 in cash, a dowry fit for royalty, as newspapers quipped. The wedding itself was an opulent affair. The Pullman family's already impressive Chicago mansion on Prairie Avenue was enlarged with a new palm court, marble terrace, and even a giant conservatory to accommodate the celebration. This glamorous start foreshadowed Harriet's own lavish taste. Moving west with her new husband, Harriet entered San Francisco society as a young socialite. Frank Carolyn hailed from a prominent California family. His father had made a gold rush fortune, but it was Harriet's inherited wealth and flair that truly set the couple up for high living. The Carolyns purchased estates in the Bay Area's most fashionable enclaves, including a sprawling country property in the Santa Clara Valley town of Cupertino. By the early 1900s, Harriet was hostess to glittering fetes at her California Petit Trianon, cementing her rise to prominence not just as an heiress, but as a leading lady of West Coast high society. The mansion known as Le Petit Trianon was originally built in 1892 for Charles A. Baldwin and his wife Ellen, a San Francisco couple who established a successful wine-producing estate on the property. The Baldwins named their 137-acre Beaulieu, meaning beautiful place, and indeed it was. They entertained lavishly, constructing a massive stone winery with underground cellars and importing French grapevines, bottling wines under the Beaulieu label that sold as far away as New York and London. This prosperous first chapter set the stage for the estate's next act as Harriet's showplace. Architecturally, Beaulieu's mansion was an homage to French neoclassical design. Noted architect Willis Polk drew inspiration from the grand villas of Versailles, loosely adapting old-world elegance to California's landscape. The result was a miniature palace in the Baroque Revival style. Tall columns, pilasters, and arched windows modeled after Louis XIV's Grand Trianon at Versailles gave the house its name and stately appearance. The symmetry and proportion echoed European royal architecture, albeit on a much smaller scale. The mansion's frame was made of local redwood timber, yet finished with stucco to mimic white stone, creating the illusion of a marble chateau. The house was set amid formal gardens and vineyards. French-inspired landscaping surrounded the home, perfect for outdoor soirees. When Harriet purchased Beaulieu in 1909, she found it the ideal stage for her social ambitions. She and Frank transformed the estate into a hub of Gilded Age entertainment. In September 1909, for example, the Carolyns hosted an alfresco gala on the grounds, complete with orchestral music, electric lights strung from the trees, flowing water features, and even fireworks. Surrounded by the mansion's French elegance, elite guests danced and dined under the stars. A few years later, during San Francisco's 1915 Panama Pacific International Exposition, Harriet strove to outshine even the railroad barons and silver kings of California. She competed with the illustrious Crocker family in throwing lavish parties for visiting European dignitaries, and Le Petit Trianon proved a perfect venue for impressing these crowned heads of Europe. By all accounts, Beaulieu under Harriet's ownership was a scene of nearly fairy tale opulence, a slice of Versailles transplanted to the orchards of the Santa Clara Valley. Despite the glittering life she created in California, Harriet's personal story took several dramatic turns. In 1913, with ambition soaring even higher, she acquired 554 acres in Hillsborough to build a palatial new estate known as Carolyn's. This 65,000 square foot French chateau would later dwarf Beaulieu, boasting 95 rooms, a private racetrack, and a staff of 60 servants. And indeed, it was one of the last great mansions of the Gilded Age. However, the very extravagance that defined Harriet's lifestyle also portended troubles. The Carolyns' marriage grew strained amidst the construction of the mega mansion. Society pages noted Harriet spending long stretches in New York while Frank stayed on the West Coast. In 1919, just a few years after Carolyn's was completed, Harriet left Frank, effectively ending their marriage. Frank passed away in 1923, and Harriet made headlines by suing her late husband's estate for over $1 million, claiming much of their property was bought with her money. By this time, Harriet had relocated permanently to the East Coast, visiting California only occasionally. becoming the wife of Colonel Arthur Skimmerhorn, a New York aristocrat, and lived out her later years mainly in New York high society. After Colonel Skimmerhorn passed away in 1933, she maintained a luxurious Park Avenue apartment and an estate in Lenox, Massachusetts. By all accounts, she remained fabulously wealthy and retained her flair for the finer things to the end. Harriet passed away in October 1956 at the age of 87, closing the chapter on one of America's most intriguing heiresses. She had spanned the era of railroad barons and French chateaus, lawsuits and lavish balls, truly living up to the Pullman family maxim that money need never be an object. Harriet's beloved Cupertino estate, Beaulieu, would survive long after its Gilded Age heyday, though not without challenges. In 1940, the mansion and remaining acreage were sold. A quarter century later, as Santa Clara Valley transitioned into suburbia and tech campuses, the old Beaulieu property was acquired for the new Anza College, which opened in 1965. For a time, the once grand house stood in neglect on the young college campus, and there was even a plan to demolish it in the late 1960s. Thankfully, local history enthusiasts sprang up to its defense. Le Petit Trianon was listed on the National Register of Historic Places in 1972, recognizing its architectural and historical significance. With preservation grants and community support, the building was saved and carefully restored instead of torn down. In a twist almost as eventful as Harriet's life, the entire house was moved twice. The 300-ton structure was rolled to new locations on campus, first to make way for a performing arts center, then later to accommodate a parking lot expansion. These delicate moves were successful, and by 1982, the mansion had been fully renovated to its former splendor. Today, Harriet's Le Petit Trianon in Cupertino enjoys a quiet but fitting role as the California History Center, a museum and educational facility dedicated to regional history. And with that, I'll turn it over to you. What did you think about Le Petit Trianon? Let me know down below in the comments section, and while you're there, make sure you're subscribed so you never miss an exciting episode of This House.